In this video, I would be sharing how I make my bustier in order to achieve this well-defined bust area. Whether you're making a sleeveless dress, you're making an off-shoulder dress, you're making a dress with your shoulders all there, I'll be sharing how I make my bustier. Now, if you want to learn how to achieve this well-defined bust area for any of your bustier, then you should see this video up until the very end. And now let's jump into the tutorial. For this is the fabric of choice that I worked with. It is an Adire fabric and it comes in 5 yards. I will also be using a lining for this also, and I've got a number of interfacing. So I have my hair stay, I have the paper stay here, I also have this here. It is called wadding, where I got it. It's called wadding, and that is what I would use for the bust area. To proceed, I've got the layout of my pattern all drawn out. On this part, I will be drafting the front, and on this other side, I will be drafting the back pattern. The length of this border is 17 inches, and I added half an inch for sewing allowance, and that made it 17.5 for the front, while for the back it is 16 inches plus half an inch sewing allowance, making a total of 16.5. For the neck width, I went for 3 inches. This was altered later on. The next thing I will do is to mark in my darts. So I'm just going over to mark half of my bust span measurement, and I'm taking 1 inch for my dart allowance. After that is done, I will then mark my vertical measurement. The first vertical measurement I would be marking is my bust. Next, I'll be marking my waist measurement. I would also add 1 inch to cover up for my dart allowance. I'll connect those points together. After that is done, what I'll do next is to alter my neckline. I want a neckline that is 4 inches wide and also about 4.5 inches deep for the front. I'm going for a round neckline, which I'm using my pattern master to draw. So once that is all done, what I'll do next is draw in my armhole. I want to have a shoulder dart on this bustier. So what I will do is to mark the midpoint of my shoulder slant. That was about 2 inches. I will connect that to my bust point line. After that is done, what I will do next would be my under bust tightening. I would mark 1 inch away from the dart leg towards the side. I will mark half an inch towards the center front. Then I would use my hand to draw the shape of my bust area this way. The trick to having a well-defined bust area is in the way you draw your bust, your under bust area when you are doing your tightening, and also the amount of fabric you are taking away from the under bust, the amount of measurements you would be taking away from the under bust. So after that is done, I'm marking 1 inch as my bust dart. I'll connect it, and so far so good. I will label this as my side center front, and I've got my side front. This is all the alterations I did for the front. It is now time to proceed to the back. First thing I'm doing is to alter the neckline as I did for the front, and I'm going for a neck depth of about 2 inches or 2.5 inches. I would also connect that into a round neckline. Next thing after that, I will be drawing my armhole for the back, after which I would mark my vertical measurement, which is the bust measurement and the waist measurement on the back pattern. After drawing in my dart, what I'd like to do on my pattern is to mark my zipper allowance right on my pattern before cutting it out. So guys, what I'll do next is to cut this out, and you will be seeing the pattern set that I'll be working with. I've got 3 patterns right here: the center front, the side front, and also the back pattern. I would place these patterns on my fabric and I will be cutting them out. Here I am pinning all of my pattern on the fabric. I'll add necessary side sewing allowance and then I'll cut this out. I am done cutting. Now, in order to make sewing easier, I like to notch the underbust, the bust and the chest line, especially when you're working with a bustier. This is very important. It will help your fabric to align in the appropriate places. So if you have not been notching, kindly go ahead and notch. I've got my lining piece here. It is just a replica of what I cut on the fashion fabric. Next, I'll be showing us the way and manner I ironed the interfacing on my lining and also on the fabric. Starting with the fashion fabric, the center front of the fashion fabric, I have cut out the paper stay that I'll be using on the center front, and this started from the shoulder and ended at the underbust. I've got my stay here also, so I am ironing 2 layers of interfacing on the center front of the fashion fabric. For the side front, I would be doing something similar, but that would be starting from the chest line and it ended on the bust line. So I cut the interfacing in a D shape. Somehow it looks like a D shape, and I'll be ironing 2 layers right on the bust area. For the lining, it would also be something similar. However, I am only using 1 layer of interfacing. Now, this is a personal choice. You can decide to use more than that. And all the interfacing stopped on the bust line. I am done ironing, and this is what my fabric looks like so far. This is the main fabric right here. And I've got my lining right here also. In order to further enhance the bust area, I like to add wording to the bust area. This wording that I showed us earlier at the beginning of this tutorial is what I like to use. So guys, for this I have gone ahead to use my pattern to cut this out. This part goes to the center front, and the way and manner I do this is that I do not let the wording stop on the sewing allowance area, so it stops half an inch away from the sewing allowance, and this is to ensure that it is not bulky, because when you join two fabric pieces together, it can get bulky. Also, this wording started from the chest line and ended on the underbust line, so I use my pattern to cut it. You can see it starts from the chest line. This is for the center front, and it ended right on the underbust line. No seam allowance added on the wording. In order to properly stick the wording together, I like to use my hemming tape. Now you can decide to use your ironing loom, but it takes a long time before it gets stuck. So what I'm doing is placing the hemming tape in between my lining and the sticky part of the wording. After layering my hemming tape, I will just place my wording on it, proceed to my ironing table and place my iron on it. In less than 5 minutes, I am done with this. I am done guys, and this is what I have. You can see that the wording is well stuck to my lining and it is not coming off. To begin the sewing process, what I will do is to join the center front and the side front together, and since I created notches while I was cutting, what I will just do is to locate those notches and match them up appropriately. This is my lining, so I'll proceed to my sewing machine and join my lining piece together. I've also got my main fabric, the fashion fabric. I'll proceed to my sewing machine and join them together. For the back, I will be picking my darts on this for both the main fabric and also the lining. This is me on my sewing machine trying to join my fabric pieces together. This is what I've got after I was done sewing. At this point also, I have ironed my seam lines open, and this would also help make the bust area more pronounced. This is what my main fabric, my fashion fabric, is also looking like. The next thing would be to turn the main fabric with the lining. To do that, I would place right side of the lining against the right side of the fabric. Proceed to my sewing machine, turn it along the neckline, and take 1/4 of an inch along the sides, and I'll show us what this looks like. This is the outcome after I was done sewing. You can see how well pronounced the bust area is looking. In addition to this, you can also include cups, the ready-made bra cups, if you want it to be much more pronounced. But this was what I was able to achieve using my interfacing and my wording. If you found this tutorial helpful, kindly give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so. Click on the subscribe button, and I will see you guys in my next video. Stay blessed and goodbye.